Welcome back to another episode of the podcast that's my favorite, the MDS Guru. This is Melinda Renshaw here with you all today to give you an important message, a special announcement, something that's really tied to our QM series. Listen in. When I first heard about this change, I didn't believe it, so I quickly went and looked for the source of the information. The information comes from the January 1st, 2026 version 18.0 QM manual. Residents receiving Medicare Part A or Medicaid covered hospice services are now excluded from the long-term antipsychotic medication trigger. Can't believe that, but it's true. If your resident is getting Medicare Part A hospice, which is that's traditional hospice, it's covered by Medicare usually. Sometimes it's Medicaid. But anyway, the tricky part is the information has to come from the hospice claims and not the MDS, and I don't understand that. Maybe somebody has some insight and they can enlighten me, but that is the one part. You will put it on the MDS like usual, but they're not going to change your QM triggers based on that answer on the MDS. It has to be from the claims, which to me is weird. So there's that. With that information, we'll go right on into our last two QMs that we're going to cover in this series. Long stay prevalence of falls. There is an exclusion, and that's if falls J1800 is dashed. Of course, we don't want that dashed. We don't want anything dashed, right? It's in the REI manual. As of October, the definition of a fall has changed. It's always been unintentional change in position coming to rest on the ground floor or onto the next lower surface, like a bed, a chair, or mat. And they've added, or the result of an overwhelming external force, as in somebody pushing somebody. So I wanted to clear that up. You do count it as a fall if some resident pushes another resident. I have always done that, but not everybody has. My research indicated that 43% of nursing homes fail to report falls completely. So to me, that's just crazy. Fall prevention is a big deal, and it has to be looked at by your IDT team for trends and other factors like, were they in pain? Did they need to use the bathroom? Were they hungry? Were they confused? Was it a certain CNA staff? Was it a certain nurse? Was it a certain shift? And all of these things get brought together for you to try to figure out, your root cause analysis for every fall. And it sometimes gets very hard, as you know, when you have somebody that falls every day. You can't always come up with a new intervention. If you have any great tips or tricks for fall prevention, let me know. The last QM in our series is long stay prevalence of behavior symptoms affecting others. I see this coded quite a bit, and then I go to look at the charting and don't see anything charted. So remember, if it is not documented that your resident disturbed other people, then it didn't happen. Even if everybody's complaining to the charge nurse that they were up all night or they heard so-and-so screaming, if it's not in the notes, it didn't happen. Again, we have to chart what happens, what we know, because we get used to it. You will want to look at some things on your MDS for accuracy if this flags or triggers. It's physical and verbal behavioral symptoms. Behaviors not directed at others, rejection of care, wandering, those are some things you should audit. The exclusions. If it is a discharge assessment, it is excluded. And of course, if the behavioral, rejection of care, or wandering is dashed or skipped on the MDS, then that's an exclusion. There are no covariates. And like I said, just make sure it's documented that a resident was affected by the behavior of another one. Thanks for listening. I have been asked about going over the new surveyor guidance, and we might do that. If you have any requests on podcast subjects, let me know. Have a great week, guys. Thanks always for listening. Until next time, bye.